The Spawn of Fortune by Angus Evan Abbott. I don't know much about firearms, so I would like you to pick me out what you consider a good weapon. The salesman ran his eye along the rows of revolvers. This one I can recommend, he said. Its barrel glinted blue, its stock was pricked out of nickel, and its hammer filled a glittering cylinder like the nose of a ferret in a rat hole. Ah, yes, that looks like all right. Is it loaded? No, kindly explain to me how this trick is done. After he had seen the cartridges shoved into the chambers and had paid the price, Arthur Brackenridge slipped the weapon into his breast pocket, made his way along the Strand, and turned sharply down Villiers Street, and entered the underground station. Earl's Court, first return, he said at the pigeonhole, but he hastily corrected himself. No, not return. Single, I mean. Earl's Court, for single. He pocketed the ticket, grinning ruefully as he said to himself, The return will be a free journey this time, I imagine. Halfway down the dirty stairs that led to the platform, he suddenly paused. What in the world possessed me to take a first? Third would have done me quite well. What an ass I am today. Ah, well. I have lived in this world first class, and I might as well go out of it first class. A few waiting passengers sauntered up and down the platform. Smoke hung in fantastic blue whiffs, writhing and twisting and swirling lazily towards the roof, and the gas burned yellow in the great glass globes that hung above the footway. The ticket inspector, at the foot of the stairs, his punch dangling in his fingers, carried on a flirtation with a buxom wench of serving-maid class. Besides, it will look better on the evening paper bill. Suicide in third-class underground seems cheap. Few persons of class enter the underground, and none travels third. Substitute first for third, and, well, it should make a rather taking bill, you know. At this point in his soliloquy, Arthur Brackenridge became aware of his curious growling rumble that rapidly grew into a roar, as if in fear of this ominous sound the black tunnel began to vomit smoke that gushed out of a dense cloud bank. At last, two yellow eyes trembled and blinked in the darkness, and the next instant the Richmond train came whizzing, rocking, screeching, and grinding out of the blackness, and stopping with a jerk at the platform. Brackenridge ran nimbly along the carriages and jumped into the first empty compartment. Placing his hat in the rack, he let down the window and stuck his head out far, as though looking for a friend, a trick much resorted to by lovers or schoolboys who wish the compartment to themselves. On this occasion, however, the stratagem was unavailing. At the moment the train was about to move, a brawny man brushed past the ticket inspector and grasped the handle of the door, and gave it such a lightning-like twist and pull that had Breckenridge not drawn in his head with rapidity, he must have found himself at full length on the platform. Without one word of apology, the stranger shut the door with a bang and flung himself into the corner, never once glancing at the young man who stood in the middle of the compartment, looking the anger he felt. To Arthur Brackenridge's way of thinking, the entrance of the stranger was an abrupt to an uncalled-for degree, and though he narrowly had escaped being flung out of the carriage, determined him to remonstrate. So he opened by saying, in his decided manner, emphasized by anger that was in him, "My seat, sir?" The stranger glanced up. His eyes were bloodshot, and his features set and hard. He said nothing, however, and sat tight. "My seat, sir." This time the stranger did not even condescend so much as a glance. "For the third time, I tell you that you're in my seat. If you doubt me, my hat is on the rack above. Will prove what I say." Without a word, the fellow flung himself into the opposite corner. "Gad, he's a cool customer," Arthur muttered as he took the seat vacated by the stranger. The man the man sat, or rather, lay along the cushion, his two hands deep in his trouser pockets, and his eyes fixed on his foot as it rose and fell to the rocking of the carriage. He was a man past middle life, fairly well dressed and sturdily built. "I'll startle this cold-blooded fellow before I'm through with him," Arthur Brackenridge thought. Leaning forward, he addressed the sullen man. "I would like you to change compartments at the next station." The man stared angrily at the speaker. "And I shall do nothing of the kind," he replied decisively. "I advise you, sir, for your own comfort, to change." "I look after my comfort without assistance from others. I shall not change." "As you please," Breckenridge replied in a careless tone. The train crunched and ground and shuddered and came to a standstill at Westminster Bridge. Arthur Breckenridge spoke. "Allow me, sir, to advise you again to change carriages. It will not put you to too much trouble and may save you a lot. I speak in all good faith." The heavy man ran his eyes over the other, and there was an unspeakable scorn in the glance. Then he again turned his attention to the dancing boot. When the train disappeared in the tunnel, Arthur Brackenridge sat up. "As you have seen fit to disregard my advice, given, as I said before, in all good faith, I can only hope, sir, that you will not object to me committing suicide. I intend to blow my brains out before we reach St. James Park Station." The surly man leapt wildly to his feet. He threw open the carriage door, and the roar of the tunnel drowned Brackenridge's cry to stay. Steam and smoke in a purple cloud, and the sulphur smells belched in and filled the compartment. The younger man had grasped hold of the other's arm. At last, the door was shut, and the two stood facing each other. Brackenridge grinned. "I gave you fair warning. It crossed my mind that you might prefer to be elsewhere." "What do you mean? You're not going to kill yourself." "Ah, but I am." "Good heaven, man, you're crazy." "You may speak like a coroner's jury, sir. As a matter of truth and of fact, I am not crazy. I am terribly sane, which, as far as I can make out, amounts to pretty much the same thing in this world. It is only the insane that would try to live after the events of this awful day. I'm too sane to attempt to do so." The elder glowered into the eyes of the younger. He was much taller of the two and had to stoop low. "Whom have you done for?" he asked abruptly. "What do you mean?" the young man asked, a trifle uneasy under the other's bloodshot eyes. "Whom have you made away with? What did he do to you to make you with this deed?" The fellow stepped hurriedly back into the corner and looked about him as though he feared he had been overheard. Arthur Brackenridge blurted out, "What the deuce do you mean, sir? Done for? Made away with? What an idea! You're crazy now instead of me. It is I who have been murdered, foully and brutally murdered. Yes, sir, twice this day. But here we are at St. James's, and the little affair is not done. I trust to your honor not to say a word to the guard, for as sure as he comes for me, I shall fire, and in my hurry may make a mess of it, you know. Now, out you get. That's a good fellow, and God bless you, sir. For some reason quite unexplainable, I wish to be alone when, well, goodbye." The surly man stepped out, walked a dozen feet towards the exit, paused for a second or so, then hurriedly retraced his steps, entering the compartment, and shut the door after him. "No, I may be hanged if I leave you." Breckenridge sat wearily back in the cushions. The stranger stood looking down upon him. "Postpone the deed for just one station more. I may want to speak to you. May I?" Breckenridge nodded and enforced affirmation, and the heavy man seating himself, a silence followed. At length the stranger said, "There is but one crime in the long calendar the devil has prepared us for that warrants a man taking his life." "Yes, what crime is that, may I ask?" Murder? My dear sir, said Breckenridge, sitting up and speaking with animation. My dear sir, a murderer has no need to kill himself. You mean society will do the job for him? Well, not at all. I mean quite a different thing. A murderer dies the instant his victim dies. Oh, indeed. I did not know that. It is so, nevertheless. A murderer may walk about and be to all outward appearances alive, but as a matter of fact he is as dead as a pharaoh. His hold on the world is relaxed. His self-respect is dead, his manliness is dead, his liberty is dead, his ease of mind has been slain by the self-same blow that slew his victim. Everything that constitutes life is slain, and lies dead within him, a rubbish heap with his heart, a core of hateful fire smouldering beneath it. Breathing, working, walking, talking, seeing, all of such things are but incidents of life. A life of falsehood and subterfuge, of wildly fleeing from a consequence, is death in its most awful form. Breckenridge spoke rapidly and with bitter vehemence. I tell you, he continued, murder changes a man from a living being to a craven coward, a coward who fears to live and fears to die. The heavy man sat in silence for some moments. It seems to me, he said at length, that one who contemplates suicide is still more a deplorable creature than a murderer. I don't see it matters in the light of all. Well, I think you will agree on that one who has committed murder may, at least, be presumed to have been brave at the moment of the deed. I suppose there is something uncanny about taking human life that demands valor of one kind or another, assented Breckenridge. But with suicide, it is altogether different, continued the stranger. The attenuating impulse is cowardice, pure and simple, a weak determination to escape threatened or present pains of body and mind. But I maintain that deliberately, with premeditation, slay a fellow man calls forth one glorious outburst of manhood, one period of physical triumph, of mental exaltation, ineffable, supreme, a moment when a man's feet are on the spheres, when his head is ablaze in the sun. His soul is a great licking, rolling crimson flame, and his arms are reaching down through endless space to the spinning world, and his fingers creep among the crowd to clutch his shrieking victim, clutch him, and roll him in the palms, crush his bones, squeeze him, crunch him, and roll him again and again, and work him gradually, gloatingly, towards the fingertips to hurl him, a pulpy mass, into space and everlasting blackness. I call that a supreme moment, when the crimson flame of soul fire leaps through the smoke clouds of a smoldering life to the very sky. The stranger had started to his feet, his eyes great and full of fire, his hands clenched above his head. Whirling around and facing Arthur Breckenridge, he demanded, Why would you kill yourself? I've lost my fortune. What is that you talk of cowards? I thought you valiant. You thought yourself. You feared to live because perchance your circumstances may not be quite so pleasant as formerly. Sordid coward. It's not altogether the matter of money, faltering the young man. The stranger kept his eyes fixed upon him. There's a warrant. Then you are a criminal. No, I am not. Why the warrant? My partner has landed us both in fraudulent bankruptcy. Are you innocent? Absolutely. And you fear. Well, there is as much shame as fear. You are vain as well as a coward. To be the principal in a criminal trial is no pleasant experience, at least so I gather from the newspapers. The heavy man sat down and gazed at Breckenridge contemptuously. Young man, what a craven you would have to believe me. Your cowardice is so great that you are willing to stamp yourself guilty by self-murder rather than face your accusers and confound them. On my soul, I am surprised you ventured out alone to kill yourself. I should have thought you would have had implored someone to come with you while you took the leap into the dark. Why, were you given youth, strength, health, good strong arms, and sound heart if they are not intended to overcome some obstacles? Think, Would it not be greater to step out before the world and say, "Here I am, an honest man, where are my accusers?" rather than to lie on the floor of a railway carriage with a wreath of powder? Yes, but you see, my dear sir, today there has been focusing of all that is unfortunate for me. My whole fortune is gone. The fact that it has been lost causes the police to want me, and the fact that the police want me has me lost me, and, well, out with it! Lost you what? Arthur Brackenbridge did not intend to say more, but the stranger's commanding gaze and imperative question left him powerless to resist. At every station he prayed that someone would enter the compartment. In the underground is a contrary line. No one disturbed them. "What else have you lost?" demanded the heavy man. "Well, to out with it, as you asked, the girl to whom I engaged her was—" The stranger threw back his head and burst into a fit of laughter wherein there was no trace of mirth. Brackenridge felt indignant in the sarcastic levity of his new-found combatant, but said nothing. "A girl," the heavy man shouted. "Fine girl indeed, that will break her promise because you've lost a pound. She gave you her word and now tells you to your face that she will not keep it." "She is not. I tell you she... But you have just this minute said she told you to go about your business." "I said nothing of the sort." "Then how know you that you have lost her?" Brackenbridge was silent. "Let us be honest to one another. Answer me. How know you?" "Welcome in." "Her guardian, her aunt, told me." "My young friend, take the advice of one who has seen, experienced, learned. Have no dealings with a woman through a woman. Never. Give me that revolver you have in your breast pocket." The revolver was weakly passed over. "Now we are coming to Earl's Court Station. Get out. Be a man. Walk to the first policeman you meet, or better still, hail a hansom and tell a cabby to drive you to the nearest police station. Say to the inspector, 'I hear there is a warrant out for me. I have come to give myself up, if you want me.'" "By George, I don't like to do it, you know. I swear I don't, but I suppose your advice is good. I may say I do not fancy passing through the machinery of justice. The stinking police cells, the stinking police court, and maybe the stinking old bailey in the stinking hallway as well. I don't like the idea, I say." "Nonsense! I have little doubt that you'll find the plank bed in the cells more entertaining, at least, than the stone slab of the morgue." "Don't speak of it, sir. Not another word. I hadn't thought of that. Upon my soul, I hadn't. You make my flesh creep." The stranger grinned for the first time. Arthur Brackenbridge reached for his hat and reluctantly left the carriage. He stood for a moment, his back to the compartment, and his hand still on the door. Turning, he said, "Yes, you're right. I'll do it. I'll give myself up and see what becomes of me. My name is Brackenbridge. You'll, without a doubt, see it appear often in the newspapers during the next month or so. But whatever becomes of me, sir, you have saved my life. Whether you have done me a good turn or an evil one has yet to be seen. But tonight, at least, I am grateful. Very grateful. The slab keeps recurring in my mind, you know, and, well, goodbye, my friend. And God bless you, sir. God bless you." The two men clasped hands, gazing into one another's face earnestly and long. The train started with its usual racking jerk. The heavy man sat huddled in the corner, his brows contracted, arms folded, and his eyes fixed on his dancing foot. The train arrived and departed from West Kensington Station. He slipped his hand into his breast pocket and slowly drew forth the revolver. The muzzle smelt blood. It looked blood. Without one glance at the weapon, but handled by the uncertain handles of gold ornament, he muttered, "Taken one life, saved one life. Surely one should balance the other. But he says, no, not one life, but two. You have taken two. You, your victims, and your own." I believe he was right in my case, as I was in his. The balance is against me, hopelessly against me now and for all eternity. He said to me, God bless you, sir. I think that is a good omen. He is the last I shall meet on this earth. And he said, God bless you, sir. With his thumb, he drew back the hammer on the weapon until it clicked. Twice. I might as well end my flight by instantaneously putting myself out of reach of my pursuers, and it is better that I do it with the young man's words ringing in my ear. He was flying to his death, I for mine. He found life, and I found. At Hammersmith Station, the travelers by train gathered round the compartment to stand tiptoe and peer into it while guards were lifting the corpse up from its sorrowful collapse. The next morning's papers contained the news of suicide in Gray's Inn murderer and the arrest of Arthur Brecken.